She's literally crazy. No.
Shots have actually been fired. Let's break down Cruel Summer Season 2, Episode 8 and find out just what happened. What's going on, you lovely people? Lisa here, and first I just wanted to say thank you for being patient with me while I get this episode recap up. I know it took a while, and I probably could have combined it with the episode 9 recap, considering I'm putting this out on the same day the new episode comes out, but I decided to go ahead and continue to make them separate videos, but I did want to explain to you why there was a bit of a pause and this episode didn't come out when the actual TV episode aired. And if you want to skip ahead to just the Cruel Summer stuff, go ahead, but just for those who wanted an explanation, I would also suggest keeping an eye on my community page because I did give updates there as to why things were a little bit delayed. But as you may or may not know, there's currently a writers and actors strike going on in Hollywood. I've linked some resources and videos down in the description below if you want to learn more about it, and I've even done some videos on my TikTok explaining things about what the actors and writers are fighting for, but also what is considered crossing the line on what influencers and journalists can or can't do during this time, because there's a lot of things the actors and writers can't do, including promoting their shows and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that are considered crossing the picket line for people that aren't in the unions but may want to be someday. So I there's some rules going on that I know a lot of people are maybe confused about, but if you're on TikTok and stuff, you may have seen some of your favorite movie or TV influencers kind of pivot some of their content for now. But yeah, while I'm not in that union, I wanted to make sure I followed their guidelines to be able to show my support in my own way, and I wanted to wait to find out what is actually okay to keep doing during this time. But I personally reached out to SAG just to get the go-ahead, and I got the go-ahead to continue with my episode reviews and recaps and movie reviews and stuff because they fall under critique and review. It's not promotional commentary. If it was purely promotional, just being like, hey, this is just a video to tell you to go see this movie, it's so cool, but there's like no other critique or review, that would not be okay. But also, on this channel, I do fall under media and press. I receive screeners from the networks, sometimes the studios, to see some of these shows and movies early so that I can make these videos for you, and I also get invited to interview different people from these projects as a journalist. So because of that, journalists' work is not struck either. You can continue that. So I will continue making episode reviews and critiques and stuff like that, but I'm going to refrain making videos about upcoming movie trailers, upcoming movie releases, like what's coming out this year, stuff like that. So yeah, sticking to commentary, critique, and review, and I hope that makes sense, but definitely check out some resources down in the description below because there's a lot of misconceptions about this strike. People thinking, it's just rich people fighting for more money, which isn't true. One of the big things is that like over 80% of SAG members cannot afford health care, and you have to make at least $26,000 a year to qualify for their health care. So when 80+% don't make that, yeah, it's wild. All those people be like, oh, it's the rich people. Those A-list celebrities make up such a tiny percentage that, people are just blowing this whole thing out of perspective. There's a lot of things that if you read into it, you'll understand why these people are striking, why they deserve fair living wages, and to not have, their likeness used for AI for years and years to come and stuff like that. But this isn't a video about the strike. Just wanted to let you know that's why I delayed until I got the go ahead. So let's now dive into Cruel Summer. Alright, so Cruel Summer Season 2, Episode 8 is titled Confess Your Sins, and this was a doozy of an episode. They didn't lie when they said stuff was about to start happening, which it should, because we only have like 10 episodes in this season and we're very much almost there. But we finally know who fired a shot from the gun, who filmed that tape, the tape, and more. And I gotta know, did you, like, the whole wondering who fired the shot, did it remind anybody else of this? Alright, I will also say that this episode confirms that all the Chambers men are trash. Like, I think we had figured that out through the season, but this episode definitely confirms it. But let's dive in. So the events take place August 1st of 1999 and 2000, and in the middle is January 1st, 2000. And as always, there are time codes to different timelines down below. So first up, summer of 1999. Megan is obviously very giddy after her first kiss with Luke and is telling Isabella all about it. And you know what? Isabella actually seems pretty happy for Megan until she realizes that, now she's going to have to share Megan time with Luke. Now before, they'd all hang out together, or Megan and Isabella would hang out on their own. But now it's like they all hang out together, or Megan and Luke are off hanging out together. So while Luke and Megan make out upstairs, Isabella Isabella heads to the senior car wash early, and as Megan and Luke are all kissy-kissy, Megan brings up how she's just excited to start this relationship with him, to explore each other together, and basically talks about how they could be each other's first time. And instead of, well, Luke being like, I'm not a virgin, because he actually lost it like a week ago to Isabella, he just plays along, especially since he realizes that Isabella hasn't told Megan that they slept together. So yeah, that's not gonna come back to bite you in the butt, right? Then over at the car wash, we see Isabella looking a little lost by herself. You know, Parker even points out, you're always on, and Megan are always like attached at the hip. Parker, who we learn has finally dumped Brent, and Parker also apologizes for kind of being a jerk to Isabella when she first arrived. But yeah, it seems like they are good, and those two are actually starting to bond, which could be good for Isabella since Megan is preoccupied. We also find out how Jeff has been making his money on the side, which has been alluded to before. The girls blackmailed him over it, and I honestly thought it was gonna be a more satisfying reveal, but it just ended up being that he's like selling pirated and bootleg movies. Like, I get it, it's a crime. Piracy is not a good thing. You know, if you were around in that time, you know, we used to use Napster and all that, or buy bootleg tapes. But the girls, I feel like, definitely made it seem like he was doing something way more scandalous. I can't be the only one who kind of was a little bit let down by that. Now, there was also a line in this timeline that Isabella said to Parker when asked about Megan and Luke that was like definitely some foreshadowing, I think, into the next timeline.
My experience 3 can be tricky. Kind of ends up like 2 against 1.
Yeah, we're definitely going to see that 2 against 1 come into play. We then have Brent continuing to be a D-bag by bragging to the guys about getting his hands on the infamous Pam and Tommy tape, which I thought that happened in like 96. I didn't think people still cared in 1999, but maybe they do. I guess horny boys, they always care. And he talks about how homemade you-know-what is just better, and then Isabella kind of runs into him later, and now that Brent is single, he goes full out creep, telling Isabella she's been a tease and asking for it, especially because she's wearing a bikini top, which like every other girl at this car wash is wearing. It just happens to be that Isabella's a little more well and down, and he uses that against her to be like, oh, but you got him out, you're showing me, you're teasing me. It's just like, ugh. But yeah, Brent's just basically like, well, now that you're done with my brother, you want the real Chambers man, right? And when she turns him down, and even points out how Brent still hangs out with high school kids, which was funny. It made me laugh. Probably my favorite line of the episode. Brent unties her top and laughs because he's just scum. But then Daddy Scum walks up and basically tells Isabella she's fine and boys will be boys. And nothing just like irritates me as much as that boys will be boys excuse. We see it so much. It's the worst. But you know what? Isabella gets a happy moment at the end of this timeline, and she's kind of sad seeing the picture of her and Luke and Megan on her picture board. But then Luke and Megan come barreling into the Airstream asking what the 3 of them are going to do that night. But now onto the explosive timeline for this episode, which is that winter timeline. You know, Megan and Isabella are planning their revenge, so Megan gets Luke to the cabin, and when she says she wants to try something different this time and grabs the rope, you see Luke get a little confused and nervous at first, and then he's like all for it and hops into that bed, but then he realizes Megan's maybe like tying these ropes a little too tight and enjoying it maybe a little too much. And then Isabella makes her grand entrance down the stairs, and yeah, Luke knows he is not in for the night that he thought he was. I just kind of love that classic reveal of Isabella showing up, and when they do that in the movies, when someone's just, or TV show, when someone's just like walking down the stairs and all you see is like the feet at first, and then the person's face being like, and then they reveal who it is. I don't know, I just kind of love those reveals. It was so good. Just Isabella just trotting down them stairs. But now, of course, Luke is panicking as the girls say they want to talk about what happened at the polar plunge, since the versions of the stories that Megan has gotten do not line up, and Luke is just panicking while the girls make him some truth serum, aka a drink. So they make 3 drinks. They put some liquid courage in their drinks for them so that they can confront him, but then we see that Isabella brings the benzo pills, which we know were found in Luke's system, and while Megan puts in 2 pills to Luke's drink, Isabella adds a 3rd one kind of for good luck, and then we also see Megan mix that drink with alcohol, which I'm pretty sure they didn't have to do. They just had to give him the benzos, but then you add the alcohol in there. You know, they tell you not to mix and drink while you're on medication because probably not a good thing. But my main question here, though, is for all the medical professionals out there, if any of you happen to actually watch this video or watch this show, if Luke drank this drink January 1st and had all those pills in his system, but his body was not found till July, would those drugs even still show up in his system like the sheriff said they did? Because I know like even when you take a drug test, they can stay in your, depending on what kind of drug it is, they can stay in your system for like a couple days, they could be a week, but couldn't they last that long? I I don't know, there's things in this show that I'm not sure if they are quite adding up, and I just need someone to tell me. I need to sit down with this coroner. I say this every episode, you're tired of it, but I gotta sit down with the coroner of this little town here. But moving on, they make Luke drink this drink, and truths finally start to come out, with Luke scrambling and of course turning all the blame on Isabella and twisting words to make himself look better. Like he admits the kiss at the polar plunge was on him, and that the guys at the party were gassing him up, but then he's like, you've said Isabella's obsessive and she just wants you all to herself, she's crazy, blah blah blah, and I kind of had to zone out because he started to just say the same things over and over, and his voice turned whiny, and it just started to turn into like the parents on those cartoons that you watch that just like don't actually hear words, it's just what the kids hear, and she's like, wow wow, you know this.
Yes, ma'am. We were playing hangman.
But yeah, it kind of made me just want to knock Luke out myself. But the confessions just continue to come out, and the girls decide they're going to film this whole thing. So they've got it all on tape with the camcorder that's been left at the cabin, because we know this is where Brent films his sexy tapes. And so they basically say they're going to show all Luke's confessions to everyone in town, to which Luke responds,
Confess all your sins, and we're gonna make sure everyone in town sees it.
My dad's gonna murder me, please.
And this to me is kind of interesting because I'm like, look, I know there's still theories about Steve. We know Steve's not that great of a guy. Could Steve be so menacing or disgusting that he would do something to his own kid like this? Because look, Steve's business is hurting. Maybe he wanted to collect on some, insurance money, and his son was already a disgrace to him in some ways. This would be the perfect cover-up, and maybe he's compensating a little too hard by putting so much blame on Steve, and also like attacking Debbie this episode, being like, oh, your daughter's not innocent, blah, 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 right? I don't know. Maybe that's still a theory that's way off, but I could actually see it being possible. Okay, but as we continue to go and we get these confessions, we then have the reveal that Luke and Isabella slept together, and Luke is throwing Isabella under the bus as he's tried to say that Isabella didn't want to tell Megan because Megan's so insecure, and you know me so much better, you should believe me, and of course Megan is very upset by all this. She's mad at both of them at this point, but we know from the summer timeline that lie that Luke is trying to tell is not true, that Isabella did want to tell Megan, and Luke kind of talked her out of it. So we also learned that Luke knew about Brent's tape collection, and that he'd even watched some of Brent's tapes with the guys, and that leads to the revelation that Luke is the one who filmed the tape of him and Megan in the cabin. Because remember, in summer 1999, we had that whole conversation about Brent being like, ooh, homemade naughty videos are so much better, and like Luke sitting there taking it all in. That had to be where Luke got the idea. And so his excuse is that he hoped one day it would be something that him and Megan could watch, it could bring them together, it could be hot and whatever, yeah. But the one thing he doesn't cop up to is playing it in front of everybody at the party. So he may have filmed the video, but he has no idea how somebody else got it and played it at the party. Now my thing here is that Luke is obviously being awful, and Isabella, didn't really, I guess lie of omission is still lying, but he's trying to put so much blame on Isabella when really a lot of it falls on Luke. But when it comes to this tape, I don't know, just throughout this whole scene, if you watch Isabella's face, I'm wondering if she actually could have been the one to leak that tape, because as we know, we've seen her jealousy get the best of her sometimes, and maybe this was her way and her plot of getting Megan back and taking on that lie for Megan to show her loyalty, but maybe she didn't think it, and she thought maybe it would destroy Luke and Megan in the process, and then she could get Megan back to herself. I don't know, but I will say the best thing Isabella has maybe said this whole show is this truth bomb.
You're worse than Brent. At least he doesn't pretend to be a good guy.
But yeah, things take that big turn after the reveal of Luke and Isabella having slept together, and during this scramble, like I said, Luke resorts to calling Isabella smothering and crazy, and this just seems to trigger Isabella, who is like, no, I am loyal, I'm not crazy, whatever, and she ends up grabbing the gun. So Megan and Luke both plead with her to put the gun down, but instead of backing down, Luke doubles down on saying Isabella doesn't care about Megan, she's leaving soon. Megan, you know me, I would never do this, and blah, blah, blah. And you know what this does? Pushes Isabella over the edge, and she fires a shot, and that is the cliffhanger of this episode. But you have to wonder, shows like this like to throw you off, right? There's always red herrings. I don't think Ned is actually involved with anything. I just think he's a sketchy dude, but I guess time will tell us what will happen. But I gotta wonder, is this actually the shot that grazed Luke, or was it just a warning shot to throw us off? Because I'm like trying to remember when there were the bloody sheets, was it actually the sheet that was bloody, or was it the pillowcase? Because wouldn't it be the pillowcase if that's what, I don't know, I'm overanalyzing right now. But now onto the summer 2000 timeline. Ned isn't answering Megan's chats, and we end up seeing Megan and Isabella team up again after Isabella reveals that the sheriff knows about who was really on that tape and lie. But of course, Megan tries to blame Isabella for the sheriff finding out, but Isabella's like, I don't know how the sheriff found out, and they decide that they need to go warn Ned that Steve is blaming him for Luke's murder. But also Megan points out that Ned has security cameras that point out to the road with the fork in the road that goes to both of their houses, and the girls decide they need to find that tape. But the girls end up going over to Ned's house, and when he doesn't answer, Megan happens to remember how his fingers press the code into the little keypad, so she gets it right. They go in, and just as they find the footage for the outside cameras, they get caught by the sheriff, and of course he pulls them into the station and also takes Ned's computer and files of the video cameras. So yeah, I wonder what's gonna be on those tapes. Maybe it's just showing that both girls were at the cabin that night. But we see that the girls stick to their stories with the sheriff, and the sheriff is basically,
"You sure about that? You sure about that? That's why?"
And then, the sheriff drops another piece of evidence on the girls, that they've been able to comb through Jeff's footage from the party and isolate a conversation that Megan and Isabella were having in the very, very background of this video that says, Megan says she wants to get revenge on Luke and make him pay and regret that he ever met them. And basically the girls conspiring with each other against Luke. So now the girls are continuing to kind of blame each other, with Megan saying Isabella brought the pills to the cabin and all of this stuff, and that's where we're gonna have to wait to see how it plays out in these next 2 episodes. Alright, but let's get into the theories and stuff. First, I gotta say, some of the dialogue on the show, just continues to be cringy. I just feel like, the teenager dialogue in that time period, of course, we talked very cringy, but I think the adult dialogue is what's really getting me. Like, I think Katie Strickland is great, but the lines that they're giving Debbie and stuff, and just, I don't know, her and Steve just cringe me out. But let's talk about Isabella. Like I mentioned earlier, I just kind of think there's points in this episode where she just always looks like she's guilty of something. Like when they were asking if Luke had seen any of Brent's tapes, I feel like Isabella just looked worried or something, like maybe he saw something that he knows about that she was like, I don't want him to see. Like, makes me wonder if somehow Brent has a tape of Isabella or something, and that's maybe what she was looking for in Brent's room earlier in the winter timeline when they had to go stay at the Chambers house. Like, sometimes she just doesn't look surprised to find out information, but more worried or guilty to me. Now, we also have to wonder where it is that tape from New Year's, because that video camera was still recording when that shot went off. So where is that tape? Was it immediately destroyed, or do we think that it's hanging out somewhere? We just don't know. No one's found it. I mean, we have Megan not going back for those sheets until literally Luke's body was found, so that tape could have just been sitting there. But they combed through that cabin immediately, right? Oh, see, now I'm sitting here thinking about this, like, when Luke went missing and whatever, it seems like the cops went to that cabin then. How did they not find those bloody sheets? Like, if Megan got those when she went to go clean up the house, had she hidden them somewhere? I don't remember. Maybe I'm missing something, because I miss things in the episodes and you guys tell me that I miss things in the comments, which I'm very thankful for. But another thought is, like, did Ned maybe hear the gunshot and that's when he came over to check on things? If he did at all? Could the girls have just patched up Luke and then just untied him and let him go because they were freaked out about what just happened? And since Luke was so drugged up, maybe, and we know he's bad at directions, could he have just himself walked into the lake and drowned? Because I'm really not believing the story that Megan's telling about Luke wanting to run away in the letter and whatever, because it just seems like that'd be way too sudden. If he was supposed to leave the next day, we would see the two of them kind of acting sad with each other in private, like, being like, oh, you're gonna leave me, oh, no. Like, it's never even been discussed. No one has any feeling, like, Luke doesn't even seem like he wants to leave, so that's just a bunch of BS, and must have just been the cover story that the girls came up with after whatever happened New Year's. And another bone I have to pick about the conversation Megan and Isabella had in the previous couple episodes, I think when Parker overheard, it's like, that Isabella's staying with the sheriff's stepdaughter, although I forgot that she was the sheriff's stepdaughter. We had to look that up because I was like, what? Why wouldn't you close the doors? Like, make sure you close the doors. Granted, Parker could have still overheard because they were yelling so loud, but just be like, oh, you're staying with the sheriff's stepdaughter. Maybe we should go confront each other outside or somewhere else. Like, they shouldn't be surprised that someone overheard them talking. But then you gotta wonder, what if this is all some kind of like the big reveal at the end of this season? It was all planned, some kind of mastermind thing, and maybe they wanted Parker to overhear and tattle or something, and that's the big reveal. Is like everybody was in on this plan. I don't know. But now that the season is almost over, what questions do we still have? We have who leaked the tape that played at the party? Is the blood on the sheets actually from Luke being shot, a miscarriage, or something else? Where is the tape from New Year's that was taken in the cabin? Why was Luke's screen name online in the summer of 2000? And I don't know. What other questions do we got, y'all? Because, like I said, we've only got 2 episodes left, so let's hope we do get some answers, right? Or maybe they'll do it like last season, the first season, where we didn't get every answer. We got the conclusions to a lot of things, but there were still a few unopened or unanswered questions. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this episode, how you think this season will wrap up. Have you gotten any new theories from this episode, or have you backtracked because of little things that you learned throughout these episodes to be like, oh, maybe I'm going to amend this theory, or maybe this actually is true. Yeah, because I'm just rambling now because I know that episode 9 comes out, so I'm like, why make theories if I know that the new episode's about to drop in a few hours? I mean, I don't want to, I'm just gonna wait till I get those facts too. But yeah, don't forget to also hit that subscribe button to come back so we can talk about episode 9, and you can check out more of my videos right over here. But as always, I'm Lisa. Thank you so much for being patient with me while I got this recap up and understanding, hopefully you understand why I was a little hesitant with the strike going on, and I want to make sure I played by the rules. But yeah, thank you for hanging out with me and listening to me ramble, and I'll see you on the next one.